with my Vans on. They gon' let me rock cause I got mores I'm gon' stand on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the King Ken and Coach Vaughn show. I'm your host, King Ken, and today we're going to start with Coach Vaughn. And Coach Vaughn is going to grace us with opinions of his team, the Memphis Grizzlies, and what they need to do to become a championship team. And then, of course, we're going to come to me, King Ken, and I'm going to give you my take as far as the Atlanta Hawks. Just some trades I would make, but also if there were some options where we decided to make certain other changes, how would I address those? And so after that's complete, Coach Vaughn would then give his perspective on the Hawks in terms of what he feels would be some moves that could put them in contender mode. And I'll do the same for the Memphis Grizzlies. So now I'm going to pass the floor to Coach Vaughn. You have the floor.
Yeah, man. Thank you. It's always good to come on here and talk ball with you. And it's especially a good day when I can talk about the Grizzlies. Honestly, with the Grizzlies, the dilemma is we're already a contender. So I feel like the next step for us is being a championship team. Like being one of those teams that everybody around the league looks at their roster, looks at their projections coming in, and they say, that's a team that can be in the finals in June. And that's just the way our organization is moving. That's what our players are expecting. And I think if we don't, you're going to see a lot of change. You know what I mean? You're going to see a lot of change. For me, the biggest thing is getting a center. That's number one. Unlike the other teams in the lottery, when it comes to getting a center, we're in the gracious spot where we don't have to necessarily have any type of superstar center. We don't have to have any specific type of center. We just need a center, like just in general. Whether or not you want to go with any of the rookies that are coming in and draft, search for a veteran. You guys have a veteran that's becoming available, like a Clint Capela. I'm not the biggest fan of that because I definitely think he is declining. But it just depends on what becomes available and what we're really willing to give up to get that center. Are you going to go and get a Jared Allen that's having fit problems in Cleveland all of a sudden? Maybe an Isaiah Hartenstein that's a free agent. Do you throw more money at him than New York can and bring that type of guy in? Same thing with Nicholas Claxton in Brooklyn. There's so many things you can do. Then we have Edey. We have Klingon. You're in that 9 range of the draft where you can easily move up if you give up other assets. And you're also in that realm where you can easily give up those draft assets and get a veteran center or a young center that just is in a log jam in somebody else's front court. There's so many things that we can do. I'm a huge fan of Zach Edey. I would definitely draft Zach Edey in that 9 spot. If the draft stock is not as up as I think it should be, I would even move back and still try to draft Edey. But I definitely want Edey as the center that I'm drafting. And then from there, use some assets or go to the free agent market and get another center to have that depth in that position. Because that's what's killed us in every single playoff run. Not really having a center that can stay on the floor when it matters and not having a center that can anchor things for the entirety of a playoff stretch. I honestly, there's more that I think we should do, but to start, I 100% think that we need not 1, 2 centers to fortify that front court. One of them as our rotation guy, the other one as a break in case of emergency type big. But that's what I would do. Other than that, maybe a big wing, a veteran wing that you can depend on, because we have a lot of youth coming up on this team that can come in, and once again, he's either that rotation guy or that break in case of emergency guy. And you could say point guard depth. I've been seeing rumors of us potentially taking Devin Carter at 9, which would basically be your backup point guard probably of the future. And he's a guy that could potentially slot next to Ja Morant in a lineup as well, coming in out of college.
He fits Memphis to a T. His play style.
And his dad is going to be the lead assistant probably this year. So he's probably
Jalen Brunson.
built his son to be able to.
Jalen Brunson. Rick Brunson.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where I think you could potentially see that happen. And if you see that happen, that makes Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard, that makes those guys expendable.
I don't believe Marcus is expendable for you guys. I think when he played with Ja in those few games, it looked good. It looked really good.
More so Luke to me. It makes Luke definitely expendable.
But Luke is probably expendable now.
I think so too.
Yeah.
We talk to a large part of our fan base, they don't believe it.
But that's what fans are. Fans build these strong connections with these players, and they don't realize that this is a business.
Exactly.
And that everything is about, the finite, because it's not, because in this league, unfortunately, the salary cap is not a finite. It's just not. So it's what Calvin Booth said with Denver. Hey, salary cap is serious. I would love to keep some of these veterans. I would love to keep some of these guys that really have a veteran squad for a couple of years while we have this strong squad. But I would prefer to much rather compete over the next 5 to 10 years and be a contender who can win than be a team that just wins a couple titles and that's it.
That's what I would do. Mine is short and sweet. I don't necessarily even have specific players because I think we're that close. I think we're that close to where we don't really need specific players. We just need a specific position that needs to have depth for whatever playoff run.
I agree with you. I love Brandon Clark. I think he does a good job. He's just too small. The same size as Klay Thompson. Sam Lee, no matter even if the ability is there, the size just isn't. So I completely agree. The name I suggested is Robert Williams. I don't know what's going to take to get him, but I did a trade, and it was like a Zaire Williams and John Koshar trade for Robert Williams, and it fit financially. And he just fits perfectly into what you need. He doesn't do too much, but he sets screens, he dives hard to the basket, he dunks, he's a lob threat, and he rebounds exceptionally well, and he can protect the rim.
But there's another reason that I'm not high on clinging. Is the knee scares me. It's been 2 years in a row now, maybe 3.
No, it's not the knee. It's the foot with him. It's the foot.
No, I'm saying with Robert Williams.
Oh, you're talking about Robert Williams. I didn't say Klingling.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just comparing him. Yeah. I was just comparing that injury history and how it scares me, especially after the year we've had with our medical stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm very scared about. But you are correct. Before any of the injuries happened, Robert Williams was my number one guy. A lot of people in Grizz Twitter, they're going to love this because he was our number one guy. But what turned all of us off was the injuries. Now, I will say, if the only thing you have to give up is Conchar and Zaire and maybe a second-round pick or whatever the case may be, you do that trade, sleep with your eyes closed.
Even if it's 4 second.
Exactly. You do it. Because we've amassed, I think, 6 or 8 second-rounders over the next couple of years.
If in bulk, they are actually a good commodity to have in terms of in bulk. And I like the idea of, I understand the risk. The Grizzlies was ambulance this year, and so I understand the fear of injuries. But I don't necessarily know. I think it was a lot of freak injuries that happened in Memphis. And then on top of that, you guys just didn't come in the offseason with a good mental. The previous offseason, you had a good mental. But last offseason was a bad mental because everything that was surrounding Ja.
Yeah.
And so now,
and the injuries.
And then on top of that, confidence was at a sky-high level because of the success they had previously. You're going to go through Memphis. All that. Yeah. I mean, everybody bought onto that notion. And it just was a lot. So I agree with you. For me, if I was just handling what the Grizzlies would do, I would say Robert Williams is like the most important thing to get, or get a center. But Robert Williams, I just see him as the most easy to get. And he doesn't cost you other assets. He doesn't cost you more than the assets you're willing to give. The problem is if you try to get Capela, it's going to cost you a Santi. Because of the money involved. I'm not trading Santi for Capela.
I'm not either. I don't, and that's the crazy part. I cannot stand Santi Aldama. But I would not trade him for Clint Capela. I just wouldn't. And that's even me who can't stand him because I think he's soft.
Yes, he is.
I think he's a big guard or a big wing. I don't think he's a big, but I still wouldn't trade him for Clint Capela. Yeah. But let's try to throw, because we can do the back and forth for both teams. I definitely want to hear what you got on Atlanta, because off air you were cooking.
Oh,
A couple days ago off air you were cooking, so I would definitely like to hear that.
Definitely. For me, Atlanta, I feel like the first thing they have to do is, and this is most important, is they have to justify what they're going to do with Murray. To me, what I would do with Murray is I would trade him. Obviously, I just seen today that Trajan Langdon has become the GM for the Detroit Pistons. What about Dejounte Murray and for the number 5 pick and Ausar Thompson? To me, that makes sense for the Atlanta Hawks. They get a backup 2 or 3, or backup 3 in Ausar. And then, of course, obviously, you get the 5th overall pick. For me, we already covered it in part 2. Zach Edey's the number 1 player on my board. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I think Zach Edey is like a number 1 player material of most years. As I've said on part 2, I did a trial, and after my test, I decided when I combined the 2023 and 2024 draft class, the number 10 player on my board was Zach Edey, and he was the number 1 player in the 2024 draft class. So I'm just not really high on this draft class. Before we got on air, guys, we were having a strong debate on Zachary Ricochet. And Vaughn was letting me know that he's not a big fan of Zachary Ricochet. And for me, I'm a bigger fan of him, but I'm not sold on him either. Like, I see footwork issues. I see the fact that he has some strength issues. Now, that being said, I do like the way he closes out. I do like the way he can attack. I like the way he uses his hands. I like the way he uses his feet on defense. I think he got great hands on defense, which I think will show up as he gets older. But and it does show up now to a large degree. And I think the shot is good from the knees up. It's the footwork that has to improve. But the first thing I'm doing is I'm trading Dejounte Murray. What I suggested to Vaughn was Murray for Jonathan Isaac, a proven defender. The 18th, I think Orlando has 18th pick, as well as a future first for Murray. And I felt like that was a really good trade for Atlanta. Clint Capela's contract from Atlanta. And the reason why I say that is because Orlando has a surplus of money coming into next year with $36 million, with no one really to spend it on. And for Atlanta, that takes away $30 million, which ultimately really helps the big plan I want to do, which is I want to trade down. I'm not a fan of the number 1 pick in this draft. I let it be known to Vaughn, I'm not a fan of this pick. I have major questions about Alexander Sarr. The big questions I have on him is we just talked about Santee being a big wing. I see a lot of the same things from Alexander Sarr. I see a big wing all day. Now, that being said, a very talented big wing, way more talented than Santee, but a big wing nonetheless. And so for me, the biggest thing that I would do is I would trade that pick to Portland for the number 7 pick, the number 14 pick, and trading our trade player exception that we have received from John Collins to Atlanta. And so to me, we collected, just in that trade alone, some major assets. And let's just say we have done the Murray trade to Detroit, where we have the 5th overall pick. Now we have the 5th pick, the 7th pick, as well as Ausar Thompson being the backup 3 to Hunter. This is something that is explosive. But to me, Michael Porter Jr. is highly overpaid. But he reminds me of this generation's Peja Stojakovic, a sharp who defensively, not that great, but he's a sharp, and he's 6'11". And he's played with Trae. In fact, they were part of the Sam AAU squad. And they were the greatest of all time. Yeah. And so you do that trade, that's DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, Bruno Fernando, because of salary reasons. And then to a third team, for a second rounder coming back to Atlanta, Garrison Matthews, who actually, I think this year he qualified for the 3-point, he had the highest 3-point percentage in the league for makes. So when you really consider that this team now looks like Trae Young at point, Bogey at 2, Michael Porter Jr. at the 3, at the 4, Jalen Johnson, and at the 5, as of right now, Onyeka Okongwu. Now the backups are Malcolm Brogdon, Kobe Bufkin, Ausar Thompson. At the 4, we haven't addressed that yet. More likely right now, Mohamed Gay. And then at the 5, we just got rid of both of our centers. So it's clear we're going to do in the draft the center. So with the number 5th pick, you have to feel like, hey, if someone else tries to come and jump to get Zach Edey, you need to be careful with that. So do you possibly, if Charlotte, because Charlotte is right there. And I think Charlotte's at the 6th pick, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. Yeah.
So if you're Atlanta, and you feel like Okay, there's no one trying to move to get Zach Edey at 6. I'll trade Dalton Connect at the 5th position, and at 7, I'll take Zach Edey. But if I feel like someone's trying to get Zach Edey at 6, I'm taking Zach Edey at 5, and then taking Dalton Connect at 7. At the same time, note, Atlanta still has number 14. With the number 14 pick, I think Cody Williams is going to be available. And I'll take Cody Williams.
Sheesh.
Yes. So now you look at Atlanta's roster. You have, for me, I know the opinions go all around for Zach Edey. And we're going to talk about that because we have only 10 minutes left. We're going to talk about that. But for me, I have Zach Edey as the most mislabeled player on the draft board. And the most mislabeled player on the draft board that I've seen since in football, Lamar Jackson. And to be honest with you, recently, the most recent example of somebody else mislabeled, Angel Reese in the WNBA. Because Angel fell to 7th, and I had Angel as the 2nd overall prospect in the WNBA draft. I had only Caitlin Clark higher than her. Because to me, if Caitlin Clark was a male, she would be Trae Young in LaMelo Ball in LaMelo Ball's body with LaMelo Ball's athleticism.
Yeah.
That's what Caitlin Clark would be. Everything that Trae does is what she does.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Angel Reese was so mislabeled. Her post defense is really good. Her switching is elite. Her ability to guard the perimeter on taller players 6'1" and above is exceptional. Angel might be one of the best defenders in the WNBA right now. In fact, her plus or minus right now is a 5.7. And that's not a good team. That Chicago Sky team is supposed to be the worst in the WNBA on paper.
Yeah.
But Angel Reese's defense is that good. Offensively, she everything happened the way people thought it was going to happen. With her not really having the explosiveness around the rim, so her percentages have went way down. But if you watch her play, the IQ is there, the position is there, her position and rebounds is there, her ability to play off the ball, on the ball is there. Everything that we saw on tape at LSU, we see it in the WNBA. And I think people did not scout it, because when you listen to the scouting report for Angel Reese, you never hear about her off-ball game. You never hear about her movement skills. You never hear about her positioning. You always hear about, oh, she's tough, but all she does is just fight for the rebound. She plays it close to the rim. She's not even all that lack of explosiveness she has won't work in the WNBA. And look, it technically has it in terms of around the rim, but everything else is transitioned. So I just want to share this. I want to share my screen real quick. All right, so right here, if you guys see it, I have offensive only scouting report for Edey. This was 3 months back. I mean, nothing really changed from this. You know, his fluidity, offensive skills, just things I thought he could do. His attack chart and his passing. I like this passing. Some people will say he's just an average passer. I thought he actually showed some really good vision in regards to passing. I thought, yes, he does hold the ball a little long sometimes. But the thing is, a lot of the reason why he's holding the ball long is because he actually knows where the double team's coming from. So a lot of times people, I think, have a tendency, if you know what double team's coming from, why don't you pass it out? But he also is trying to wait for a play to develop. Sometimes the best play produce a cutting system, and they don't necessarily have the quickest cutters. I truly believe in the NBA, we'll see a lot more quickness in regards to that. But that being said, I don't really believe we're going to see a ton of that anyway. I think when he posts up, it's going to be him under the basket. And then if someone's coming hard at him, then he might kick it out to the point guard or to one of the wings and create like an open 3-point shot for them. Just being realistic, I just think Zach Edey and Trae Young is a perfect fit. I think him and Klingler are optimal fits in Atlanta, but I think Trae Young and Klingler is optimal fits with each other. Not Klingler, but Trae Young and Zach Edey. So that's to me, in my personal opinion. And Rayford, if you're listening to this, I truly believe in the 75th year history of the Atlanta Hawks, you're going to hear people say the biggest mistake was Luka, passing on Luka. I don't agree with that. I didn't think they passed him. There was some other things going on. And even if you don't, I still think Trae Young was more valuable to what Atlanta needed. Obviously, Bill Russell, St. Louis, but that was racism. We know that. So this would be the biggest mistake, is passing on Zach Edey, or not even passing, not leaving this draft with Zach Edey as a Hawk. Because I don't think you're going to find a more optimal fit for Trae than Zach. He matches the same relentlessness, how he attacks. And he'll do those same things every possession and provide the same efficiency, the same drive, the same passion to do it.
It wins championships.
It really does.
champion.
The Jazz went to 2 NBA finals in a row, spamming the pick and roll. But it can only work if
LeBron went to 9 by spamming mismatch hunting.
That's what he does. So spamming works. Heck, the Warriors spam a lot of plays. Like the Warriors are constantly spamming the same plays. They're saying, okay, we're gonna do a dive there, we're gonna do this dive, we're gonna go out play Thompson and they're gonna do a flare. Like it's a lot of the same plays.
Split action. I think they spam split action and not spam that. They spam.
The NBA is full of spammers. Y'all have to, the NBA is full of spammers. In fact, Memphis spams a kick and drive.
Yes.
OKC is kick and drive. OKC
high pick and roll.
The high pick and roll. Yeah. So like team spam in this league. I feel like Atlanta gets called out for it the most because it doesn't always work, and it works sometimes, and it doesn't. And then they can get it downloaded, but the reason why it gets downloaded is because Clint Capela is limited. That's why it gets downloaded because of our center, not because of Trae. Yeah. So my personal opinion is you put those sharps, Michael Porter Jr., Bogey, and we all know JJ what he can do if you try to close out too strong with him. He'll dunk on him.
Yeah.
My belief is you play 4 out. You basically spam that pick and roll, that high pick and roll. And if they say, hey, we want Zach Edey to beat us, and they decide to sell out on the pick and roll, then Trae, take it at the top. Post up. Get position. I want you to put him under the rim. Get him under the rim, dunk on him. And if you don't dunk on him, he fouls you, so be it. We live with that. You can hit free throws. So, in my opinion, that's the best play for Atlanta. But I know we only have 4 minutes left, so I want to be very quick. If Atlanta decides to go into a different direction, like let's just say number 1 pick, they draft Zachary Ricochet, and they don't necessarily pick up Michael Porter Jr. Maybe Denver says, we're not trading Michael Porter. We changed our minds. We want to keep this team, we want to keep this core together. You draft Ricochet. So what do? In my opinion, you still do the Murray trade. If you still do that Murray trade. And you still draft Zach Edey. I'm drafting Zach Edey no matter what. My plan is, I will tell you this to a T. And I'll say this to Trae. If you're listening, Trae, when he comes to Atlanta, I want you to work out with him for 1 hour. Just work out with him. And tell, if he's not the truth, wrong. Yeah. Coach Vaughn, you can tell Ja the same thing. You know you're not going. He's going to be like, oh, that screen. That screen different. That's like Steven's screen. Yeah. And then Trae never seen no screen like that. So Trae gonna be like, oh my God, what is this? Yeah. So it's different.
He's gonna be the swing player in this draft. Yeah. He's gonna be the player that a lot of teams passed on, and those teams are not gonna get the results they want. And the team that takes him, they're gonna get the results they want. They may even reach the mountaintop, because I think his skills are that valuable in the NBA. It's not being valued enough in this draft, but when you get in the NBA locker room, when you get in NBA practices, and you have superstars like Ja, Trae, who else? LaMelo,
Bane, Bogey.
But any point guard or guy that shoots the ball and likes to shoot it coming off screens, or likes to navigate through offense coming off screens, they're gonna realize how important he is. Any big, like the Jalen Johnsons of the world, the Jaren Jackson Jr.'s of the world, they're going to realize how important his skills are in helping getting rebounds. They're going to realize how important his shot blocking is.
We're going to have to jump into part 4 right quick. We're short on time. But that being said, we're going to actually continue the Zach Edey conversation, because I felt like with part 2, we really didn't get into him as we really wanted to. And we're going to get into him in part 4, as well as we're going to analyze each other's teams. So I want to say thank you guys, and we'll be right back with you after this short break.